Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of our fall webinar series targeting grantsmanship. And we're happy to see all of you out here today, whether you're back from our summer webinar series or you're joining us for the first time. I'm Martha Desmond with New Mexico State University and the NSF HSI STEM Hub. And I'm happy to be co-hosting today's webinar with the TxHSIC Consortium and Nora Gaza. Today's topic is an overview of the NSF HSI STEM program solicitation. We welcome Dr. Erika Camacho back to our webinar series and Dr. Jennifer Lewis, both from the NSF HSI program. Before we go any further, I want to introduce Dr. Nora Gaza, who will share a few words about the TxHSI Consortium. Thank you, Dr. Gaza.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm Nora Garza and I serve as Vice President for Resource Development at Laredo College, and I'm the Executive Director as well of the Texas Hispanic Serving Institutions Consortium. We're very appreciative for this opportunity to co-host. As part of our work is to provide access, leadership, and networking. I invite all of you to visit our website, which is simply TxHSIC.org. We're a 15-year-old organization. We're a 501c3. And on our website, you will find that you can register for our conference for May 27th to 29th, 2021. If you think you're the first, somebody already very high-spirited already registered. So we hope it will be in person. If not, we will find something that we can do. We invite you to visit our website. Like I said, you can register to become a member. It is $300 and you can go ahead and pay online. You can also donate, and the donation is for scholarships for our students from the TxHSI STEM. So I know we have a very busy schedule. Again, thank you to Dr. Desmond and to Dr. Erika Camacho, Dr. Lewis, for joining us this afternoon, and I'll turn it right back to Dr. Desmond.
Excellent, thank you, Dr. Gaza. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started today, and I'll move through this as quickly as I can because we're going to be very busy. This is a two-hour webinar, including questions at the end. There's a lot of material to cover. All questions for speakers should be typed in the question and answer box. You'll see there's a chat box and a question and answer box. The chat box is for any technical issues. The question and answer box is for any questions at the end. At the end of the presentation, you will also receive a short monkey survey by email, and we would greatly appreciate it if you could immediately fill that out. That gives us feedback on how we're doing and things that are working and things that aren't working in terms of our webinars. Without any delay, I want to go ahead and introduce our two speakers today. We are very lucky to have with us Dr. Erika Camacho. Dr. Camacho is the NSF Program Director for the Advanced and the HSI programs, and I'm going to tell you, I shortened her bio. It's actually quite extensive. She is an associate professor in applied mathematics at Arizona State University. Among other things, she has been awarded the 2019 AAAS Mentor Award, the 2014 Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring from the White House, the 2020 Louise Hay Award for Mathematics Education from the Association of Women in Mathematics, the 2018 American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education Outstanding Latino Faculty in Higher Education Research Teaching Award, the 2017 Great Minds in STEM Education Award, the 2012 SACNAS Distinguished Undergraduate Mentoring Award, and the 2011 Hispanic Women's Corporation National Latina Leadership Award. Dr. Camacho grew up in East Los Angeles and was taught by Jaime Escalante at Garfield High School. She received her BA in Mathematics and Economics from Wellesley College and earned her PhD in Applied Mathematics from Cornell University. Her academic affiliations include Los Alamos National Lab, Loyola Marymount University, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Arizona State University. She co-founded the Applied Mathematics Science Summer Institute and co-directed multiple summer programs dedicated to the recruitment of undergraduate women, underrepresented minorities, and those that might not otherwise have the opportunity. Dr. Camacho's passion is to continue the work and legacy of her mentors to create opportunities for those individuals from marginalized communities and make education and advancement attainable to them. Thank you, Dr. Camacho, for being here with us today. I'm also going to introduce Dr. Jennifer Lewis. Dr. Lewis is a program director in the Division of Undergraduate Education at the National Science Foundation. She earned her undergraduate degree from North Dakota State University and her doctorate from Pennsylvania State University, both degrees in chemistry. She has been elected as a fellow of the American Chemical Society and for the American Association for the Advancement of Science. She serves as the co-lead for improving undergraduate education, Hispanic serving institutions, and also works on 2 other cross-cutting programs, the NSF-wide Faculty Early Career Development Program and the Education and Human Resources Directorate for Research Program. In addition to the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program, the Scholarships in Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics Program, and the Improving Undergraduate STEM Education and Human Resources Program. Wow, you folks are busy. She identifies as a discipline-based educational researcher and has published work on augmentation, effect, and measurement. Her current projects include social network analyses of faculty involved in institutional change efforts and measurement and variance testing to examine whether commonly used measures function for diverse student populations. Jennifer also brings expertise as an experienced project evaluator to the HSI program. So without any further delay, Dr. Camacho is going to start with today's presentation. Thank you both for being with us here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tetzman, and thank you so much, Dr. Garza. Before I start, please feel free to ask any question, put it on the chat. I will do my best to answer it, as well as my colleague. My colleague, Jennifer Lewis, is currently running panels. As you heard, she's very busy in NSF. She is involved with many programs. So she'll try to join us if the panel ends sooner, and hopefully she'll be here for the question and answer part. But so at some point there's a little disruption where I stop, she joins in, is because she'll come in and also present. This is really a joint program, so we try to do everything together. I will go ahead and share my screen. If at any point the sound gets lost or you're not able to hear, please let me know. Just give me a minute, I'm trying to. Let me just minimize this. Hold on, it hasn't started showing. Are you able to see my slide? Is everyone able to see the slide or not? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I thought I had lost you for a minute because when I'm in the presentation mode, I'm not able to see the screen. So, but thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and get started. This is quite an honor to be here with you today, and for 2 reasons. One, it's really nice to see that collaboration between the 2 organizations, because one of the things that we're trying to do at the HSI program is really start to transform our community, really leverage from the strength of different organizations and institutions to really grow and expand the opportunities available to our students in STEM. So it's quite nice to see that that is already being done. One of the things that I'm really excited to be here for is to let you know about our new solicitation that just got released at the end of August. And that is solicitation. You could find it by Googling NSF 20-599. And full name is the Improving Undergraduate STEM Education for Hispanic Serving Institution, but for short we call it the HSI program. And this was a program that was established in response to the American Innovation and Competitive Act, as well as the Consolidation Appropriation Act. And it was established with in mind to try to build capacity. And what Congress meant by building capacity was to really involve different structures that foster student and faculty growth while meeting the students where they are in their college career, academically and financially and socially. Well, we interpret it to be that way in our new solicitation. And what we mean by structures is really institutional structures, and that may include social, cultural supports and collective processes that promote effective learning environments and inclusiveness, as well as mechanisms to support personal development and professional learning for our students. And for all students within the HSI, we really want to make sure that we stress that as much as possible. And with that in mind, we have the two main goals that were the goals of the previous solicitation as well, that those goals have not changed. And the goals are to enhance the quality of undergraduate STEM education and increase the recruitment, retention, and graduation rate of students pursuing associate or baccalaureate degrees in STEM fields at HSIs. With those goals, our two key outcomes are hopefully to broaden the participation of historically underrepresented students in STEM and expand students' pathways and continuation into the workforce successfully or integration into other graduate programs. In order to be able to meet those goals, there's 3 strategies that we have, and we would like to encourage all proposers to really consider those strategies when they're thinking about the project that they're designing. And those are to support building capacity at HSIs through innovative approaches, to incentivize institutional and community transformation, and to promote fundamental research on engaged student learning and research about what it takes to diversify and increase participation in STEM effectively, and research that improves our understanding of how to build institutional capacity at HSIs. Again, we're really emphasizing institutional capacity, community transformation, because we want any strategy, any model, anything that you create with this grant to be long-lasting and to go beyond what we could provide in terms of support with funding, for you to be able to leverage from each other, collaborate with each other, and really grow the opportunities that you could offer your students and really, really excel in excellent undergraduate education. We want all our students at all HSIs to be able to have access to excellent undergraduate STEM education. So those are things that we really want to stress. The program, the HSI program, is co-managed by 2 divisions. Both divisions are in the Education and Human Resource Directorate. And the division are the Division of Undergraduate Education, for short is DUE or DUE. And the DUE programs are intended to strengthen STEM education in 2 to 4 year colleges and universities by improving curriculum, instruction, laboratory, infrastructure, assessment, and the diversity of students and faculty and collaborations. And it's also co-managed by the Division of Human Resource and Development, also known as HRD for short. HRD programs are intended to increase the success participation of individuals from historically underrepresented groups in STEM through the creation, implementation, and testing of evidence-based practice and scaling up effective strategies and models that work. My colleague, Dr. Jennifer Lewis, is actually the colleague representing the DUE program. I'm the colleague representing HRD program. We both are in the separate divisions. Like I said, together the 2 divisions come to really build the foundation for the HSI program, the foundation to really enhance the quality of the graduate education. Why? Because we're concerned with what is happening in terms of curriculum, education, but we're also concerned with what is happening in terms of participation and diversifying, the students that are having access to excellent education in STEM. So both of them really built this foundation. We are excited to say that we have 3 new tracks. And those 3 new tracks were really intentional. They were created with mechanisms to allow PIs to really have these targeted, tailored initiatives, practices, and policies, but as well as organizational changes. And let me introduce to you the 3 tracks that we have. We have track 1, which is the planning or pilot project track. And that's a 2-year-long projects. And the funding ranges from $200,000 to potentially $400,000 if you submit a collaborative proposal that involves 1 or more community colleges. And for track 1, which we also refer to it as the PPP, the deadline is January 13 of 2021. And then we're going to have a second competition again in August 25th of 2021. We also have the track 2, which is the implementation and evaluation project track, or the IEP track. And that is from 3 to 5 years long projects. And the funding ranges from $500,000 to $1 million if you come in a collaborative proposal with 1 or more community college. As you could tell, both tracks, track 1 and 2, have this new incentive to really collaborate with community college. And the collaborations, we want them to be robust. We want them to be mutually beneficial for both institutions, and to do things that are very intentional and very thoughtful. So we really want to span the mechanisms of building capacity at less resource institutions. And we also want to be able to have mechanisms that allowed institutions that have not been as successful at obtaining NSF funding to become successful and become competitive. In fact, in the track 1, the PPP track, we have a mechanism to really develop the faculty research design as well as the evaluation skills by encouraging them and by requiring them to attend a 2-day workshop prior to the PI meeting that is devoted to those topics. And they could actually put that into their budget, in their funding. The brand new track that we have, and I should mention the track 2 before I go there, the IP, is very similar to the building capacity track of the previous solicitation. The brand new track that we have is the Institutional Transformation Project track, or the ITP. And that's a 5-year-long project, and the funding is up to $3 million. So that is where we really want the institution to really do a self-analysis of what is needed to really enhance undergraduate education, and to really look at where their strengths are, as well as what the things that the opportunities are, and to really do things that are systemic, really introduce systemic changes into not just the curriculum, but also the environment where the students are. So that's one that we're really excited about. And for that one, the deadline is February 10 of 2021. And after that, every year will be the second Wednesday in February annually. And like I said, together, these 3 tracks really try to build the foundation and the mechanisms for PIs to really be able to be successful in the goals they have, as well to be able to promote at least 1 or more goals of the HSI program. There is different eligibilities for each track, and for all the tracks, in order for you to be eligible, you have to be an HSI. And what does that mean to be an HSI? The definition that we're using is a definition that is used by the Department of Education, which means you have to be an institution of higher learning that offers STEM degrees. But you also have to have about 25% or more Hispanic students enrolled in your institution. You have to have a good percentage of students that are in financial need. That could be more or less more than 50% of them have to be on financial need. And that varies, that's depends. But the Department of Education has a matrix, eligibility matrix, that is published on their website every year, and it lists the different institutions that are there. One of the points of caution is that sometimes it takes a year, there's a lag year from where you actually qualify as an HSI to actually appear in that list. But for that reason, we ask the institution to self-certify, to use the HSI certification form that we have on our website, and have an appropriate official in their institution certify that they are an HSI. That way they don't, there's no lag in the opportunities they could take from this program. For the planning or pilot projects, another criteria that we have is institutions have to be primary undergraduate institutions. And what do we mean by that? That means that institution must not have offered more than 20 PhD degrees in the last 2 years to be a primary undergraduate institution. Or they could also be a new to NSF institution. New to NSF institutions are institutions that have not received NSF funding in the last 5 years or have never received funding from NSF. For the PPP Track 1, we also do not require institutions to currently offer STEM degrees or certificates. In fact, we encourage them to use this funding to start to create their STEM certificates and degrees and programs. Also, for institutions that have had a Building Capacity Track 1 award in their previous solicitations, if that award is active and the final report has not been submitted, they're not eligible to apply for this track. For the Track 2, the IEP, which is the Implementation and Evaluation Project track, again, institutions have to be HSI, but they have to offer undergraduate STEM education programs and certificates. And that's the same requirement for Track 3, the institutional transformation. For the Track 2 IEP, if you have 2 active awards of building capacity under our previous solicitations, and you have not submitted at least one of the annual reports, you're not eligible for this track. For Track 3, we only allow 1 submission per institution, because this has to be an institutional transformation initiative that is institutional wide. And also, this is our new track, so everyone is eligible for this track this year. But once you have an ITP award, you're not eligible for the ITP track anymore. So it's almost a one-time award. And this will be really exemplars that would hopefully catalyze institutional change, not just within their own institutions, but in all the other HSIs as well. For multi-campus system of institutions that have a multi-campus system, we have additional consideration. Each campus that is part of a big system may be considered as a separate institution in the HSI program in terms of proposal submission, if the campus is geographically located in a different area, or if the campus owns its own chief academic officer. In other words, they have their own sponsor office representative. They could submit a proposal as a single institution. So that is something to keep in mind, and to also know that, that if you have like the Cal State system, each Cal State is a different institution, or like if you were to be in a place that is actually campus, not so much institutions, if you're geographically different, you're a different institution. The solicitation has some very new, exciting opportunities, our new solicitation, and this is just the highlights. There's others embedded in there, so I really encourage you to go to our solicitation, which is 20-599, and read more in detail. But one of them is all tracks may support faculty research, and that is inter-OT, transdisciplinary, discipline-specific research, STEM education research, discipline-based STEM education research, or route and participation research. And we also have a student mentoring plan that is not required for all proposals requiring stipends and wages to support undergraduate and graduate students. And that doesn't matter if the student is a participant or an employee working, let's say, with the research of gathering data or with the surveys. If you're asking for any stipend or wages for students, you would have to submit a mentoring plan. And also PIs from the planning or pilot projects track are required to attend the research design and evaluation workshop prior to the annual PI meeting. And we ask you to put this into your budget, right? So we ask for at least 2 members to attend the research design and evaluation workshop, and you should put this into the budget. As well as we require 2 representatives of the PI team to attend the PI meeting, and that should be put into the budget as well. I should say that, but that was a requirement that was in the previous solicitation. All tracks are encouraged to take an intersectional lens when considering their proposed work in the context of the student body they serve. As you know, HSIs are very diverse institutions. They do have a very high Hispanic population, but they also have other ethnic groups, other races, but they also have students that have multiple identities. For example, we have first-generation students, we have students that are returning, we have students that are commuters in some of our campuses, right? And we have students with also learning disabilities. So we want you in your proposed project to really think about all these intersectional identities that play a role and affect the experience of the student, as well as how the different environment shapes that experience, and to really think about it and articulate that well in your proposal. Now, conference proposals or workshop proposals may be submitted by institutions of higher education, including non-HSIs and nonprofit organizations, after consultation with a program officer from the HSI team. And all STEM fields that are supported by NSF are supported by the HSI program. And if you're asking what are those fields, look at the directorates that we support. And those are the fields that are supported with those directors are the ones that we support. For example, one of our directors is the social science and behavioral science director, and that's one of the fields that we support as well. So all tracks, I mentioned that now may request faculty research. But if you are asking for funding for faculty research, you should advance one or more of the overarching goals of the HSI program. And somehow, whatever you're proposing should improve and enhance undergraduate STEM education. And that may include student research experience, or for example, the fact that we're empowering the faculty to do their discipline specific research might mean that now they're able to bring that kind of research as examples into the classroom to really enhance the undergraduate STEM education and the opportunities for students. That's something that should be articulated in the proposal. Also, the proposal should explain how it will catalyze the faculty research activity in addition to supporting ongoing faculty research. So how it's going to catalyze new research as well as ongoing research that already happened. Funds may be requested for supplies or to support student research as well. Research could be done at the faculty institution as well as in another institution, or they could be at a government lab, or even in other kind of organization that might be doing research. That's where the research could take place. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the HSI. Now, and I think each faculty member that is actually going to receive research funding must include a 4-page faculty research plan in the supplementary documents, in which 1 to 2 pages are to describe the faculty members' track record in diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as mentoring of students and advancing diverse students in STEM. We want to make sure that the faculty that are getting the funding understand and are committed to advancing students' STEM education, but also have shown signs that they're actually really committed to mentoring. For all tracks, we are requiring an institutional data narrative. And in the institutional data narrative, the proposal should describe and contextualize the institution's need for the proposed project and the potential to build capacity for excellence undergraduate STEM education. What we want to see is that more or less the institution describes what are the demographics, what are the students, and we want them to articulate whether they have those numbers being reflected also in the STEM disciplines. And if those numbers are not reflected, or those percentages, what is their plan to move forward and ensure that if you're having, let's say, 27% of overall Hispanic students at your institution, how are you going to move forward to ensure that in all STEM fields, you're going to have 27% of Hispanic students in the near future? So we want you to articulate that. Doesn't mean that it's going to be against you. We just want to give more context to your project and be better to understand so that we could accurately evaluate it. And also know that within the actual funding, you could actually use that funding to build mechanisms to achieve the overall goal of ensuring that the STEM disciplines are becoming more diverse. And that's because many times you see that an institution might have, let's say, 35% overall Hispanic students, but in physics, they might have 2%. of Hispanic students. We would like to address that challenge. We would like to really move forward, move in the direction where that institution will have 35% Hispanic students in their physics discipline. So that's what that required data is. And before I go, let me go back. You could use, the proposal could use provide IPEDS data or a spreadsheet from the HSI Office of Institutional Research or other offices that will contain this data. Now for the 2 tracks, we require institutional baseline data, right? And that is for the implementation and evaluation project track, as well as the institutional transformation track. The baseline that may include one of or all 3 of the things that I'm about to mention. It could include institutional data on student demographics and enrollment in the proposing HSI in general, and also across all STEM fields. It could include that, and it could include student demographics and enrollment for each discipline that is included in the proposed project, or it could include student retention and graduation rates for each discipline that is included in the proposed project. We really want to understand what is the baseline from where you're building your project, and what is the baseline so that you could get to the goals that you're proposing. And if you have sub-awardees, if you're going in as a collaborative proposal where there's multiple sub-awardees, then this data is required from all sub-awardees. So now let me go more in detail to the different tracks. So we have the track 1, which is the Planet or Pilot Project, also for short PPP track, and that provides a 2-year funding opportunity for institutions that are new to NSF or primarily undergraduate institutions, including community college. The PPP track seeks to enhance undergraduate STEM education and build capacity at less resourced institutions, and to increase these institutions' ability to compete for NSF funding. And I highlight that because we really want to enable the institutions to start to be competitive in getting NSF funding through this track. And that's why we have the planning projects. That's what they are, is funding to plan so that you could successfully submit a proposal to our other 2 tracks. So we have the planning and pilot projects that may focus entirely on education or running participation research initiation efforts. So it could do both, or it could do one of the 2. All PPs must generate new knowledge, just like any of our other tracks, through project evaluation, activities, and articulate the plan for dissemination for their findings. I should mention that also for the planning projects, we would like to see a timeline of what are you going to be doing, so that at the end, the very last thing is to have this proposal ready to be submitted for the other 2 tracks. The PPP track consists of 2 types of projects. I kind of already mentioned them. The planning project, which are to undertake activities necessary to develop future HSI program proposals for the IEP or the ITP tracks. And for an example of the things that you could do is you could undertake an institutional-wide assessment to really see what are the needs of the institutions in terms of undergraduate STEM education and where are the opportunities to grow. You could also use the funding to catalyze necessary collaborations across different partners, cross-sector partnerships, such as government, industry, or lab. So those are 2 examples. The pilot projects are actually to achieve short-term, well-defined goals to enhance the availability of high-quality undergraduate STEM education at the HSI, and gather preliminary data for future NSF proposals to one of the 2 tracks, whether it's the IP or the ITT track. So in both of these projects, our long-term goal is for you to be able to apply to one of the other 2 tracks. Now, for the pilot projects, it's not required for you to have a overall end product, a proposal to be submitted for the ITP, I'm sorry, for the IEP or the ITP, but we do encourage it. Now, some of the things that the pilot projects could support is fundamental STEM education research to really build capacity in the learning arena, and to really lead to discovering new ways to diversify and increase participation in STEM. Now, for the PPD track, we encourage proposals to have a interdisciplinary or disciplinary team composed of the expertise that are needed to undertake the project. These projects are grounded in education and in participation. So it makes sense to have someone with educational or social science behavioral research expertise in the team. Also, as evaluation and assessment are a big part of being informed of whether we met our outcomes and whether you as a PI met your outcomes. So we would like you and encourage you to have someone who has assessment and evaluation expertise in your team. And in fact, we encourage you to bring that evaluator into the conversation when you start to develop your proposal. Because that way, you have to include an evaluation plan. That way you could have it there. You could already have some of the things, the metrics or the things that you're going to be trying to measure and the goals that you're going to have. Planning projects can consist of multiple activities, and this is just a list of examples. What we want the institution to do is to propose what they really need, what they really need to really grow and really build capacity in undergraduate STEM education. So, but here just a list. Some of the examples for the planning project activities include completing an institutional-wide STEM undergraduate need assessment, added prior institutional efforts to see how effective they were, because maybe you want to build from those efforts, or maybe you want to modify those efforts, to conduct a literature review to identify potential evidence-based practice that have been successful in order for you to be able to implement them, to conduct site visits to other programs that are doing strategies that might fit with what you're trying to do and they're being successful at it, and to learn from those promising practices in STEM undergraduate education, to learn about relevant theories of change, and that's because the institutional transformation track is grounded on theory of change and organizational change. So to start, you could use funding for that, to start to learn about that, to identify relevant institutional practice and policies that might need some modification to really set the ground so that when you apply for the institutional transformation, you're able to really transform the institution. To develop faculty, right? To develop the faculty skills in STEM education and in participation research. Also in teaching pedagogies. That's another skill that could be developed, to collect data, so that you are able to scale up effective evidence-based practice, and to catalyze cross-sector partnership, which I already talked about. That's some of the activities that you could do. Projects may focus on one or more of the STEM disciplines. So you're not just required to focus on one, you could focus on all of the disciplines that you think are needed for your campus and your institution to be successful. And address access to STEM courses and degrees based on the institutional current capacity and current state. So that's why it's very important to provide that institutional data narrative, because we want to understand what is the context of your institution, what is the capacity of your institution. As we know, we have very diverse institutions. Some are very affluent in a certain discipline, some are not, others have more resources, some of them don't, and we want to have that context to better evaluate proposals and also be able to know that what you're proposing is something that really fits within the context of your institution. For the pilot project, they can consist of multiple activities, and this is again just an example, just a few examples. There could be more, and I encourage you to go to our solicitation because we do list more examples in there. But some examples of potential pilot project activities include the implementation of evidence-based strategies to make improvements to undergraduate curriculum or co-curriculum at HSIs, to broaden participation of historically unrepresented STEM undergraduates, either in a certain discipline or across different disciplines, to create courses necessary for a new STEM degree or program. So maybe there's a new STEM degree program that you want to implement. Remember, for the PPD track, you're not required to have have current certificate or degrees in STEM. So you could be developing your programs in STEM. Projects can adapt previous successful approaches to a new institutional context. So this is something new. We don't expect your initiatives and your project and ideas and models to be new. They could be adapted from something that was successful and work, but now you're testing it in your new context, in your institution, and you're developing research on how well that works within your institution. So we welcome adaptation of successful strategies. Projects should have a well-defined measurable outcomes that are aligned with one or more of the HSI program goals. So you don't have to address all the HSI program goals, but you must address at least one. And your outcomes have to be well-defined, and there has to be a metrics of how they're going to be measured. Projects may focus on training students in high-demand fields, including artificial intelligence, data science, quantum computing, and other advanced factory manufacturing. Now let me introduce to you track 2, and that's the implementation and evaluation track, the IP track. I briefly introduced it, but now I'm gonna go more in detail. So for the IP, it provides 3 to 5 years of funding opportunities for all HSIs, and that's for them to develop projects that are based on the department or a unit or department level to enhance undergraduate education. The IP can include activities that strengthen research in STEM education and or broadening participation. And the IP track supports research studies that promote one or more of the HSI goals. Just like before, you have to at least promote one of the HSI goals. You don't have to do all of them, but at least one. And also the IP track supports replication and adaptation studies that examine one or more of the HSI program goals. So again, you could take something that has worked before or that works in another institution that has been successful and apply it to the new context of your institution and then study it. The focus of the IEP should be to support the institution should be supported by the institutional data, because what we want a close connection to the strategic plan of the department or the unit that you're working with or you're trying to enhance. We want that close connection. So it should be supported through the institutional data narrative that you provide. And also it should be relevant to the institution. And that's something that is very important. So there are some components required for the implementation and evaluation project proposal are the following. It should include a diverse team of expertise that is ready to undertake that project. And again, many times that it means that an education expert or a social and behavioral science research expert is part of that team. Also, an assessment and evaluator expert should be part of the team. And when I say the team, sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be co-PIs, but they have to be in the senior personnel so that they could help you shape and really have an influence on the project as well, because some of the project goals are going to be directly connected to those expertise. And the ITP must also include a STEM education research component. Has to have a research component, and that's why it's important to have someone with STEM education research expertise. It has to have a project evaluation. Therefore, it's important to have an expert in evaluation and assessment, and it has to have a dissemination component. So those are required components. It also has to have an institutionalization and sustainability plan. We want to make sure that the activities that you're proposing, not all of them, but some of them are going to live beyond the funding of the program. We want them to be institutionalized and sustained. The IP track proposal should also have complete information on the outcomes and impacts of previous HSI program awards. And that's because many times we see a proposal being submitted by an institution that already got one of the HSI's awards, let's say the Building Capacity Award, and there is no connection. It's obvious that they haven't talked to each other. So we want you to be able to articulate what were the outcomes and impacts of the previous award, and how is this going to be different, or how is this going to build from that. And the new proposal should be based on a thorough evaluation and assessment also of other NSF awards that are related to STEM education, and assessment of the current state of the institution. So both what is the state of the institution, what has been done before. And the IP activities should be evidence-based and connected to the HSI strategic plan. So we want projects that are focused in multiple areas, but we want them to connect to the strategic plan. Project may focus in a whole range of this things. Here's just an example of a few things: critical transition, cross-sector partnering, building capacity, gatekeeping courses, co-curriculum programs, recruitment and retention. For graduation, they could focus on broadening participation efforts of historically underrepresented groups. And they also could focus on things that are more about hands-on experience and facilitating that experience for our students so they are ready to go into the workforce. So the project's goals and proposed activities should be based on existing STEM education and behavioral science literature. That's the evidence-based part, and they should align with long-term plan of the units and department. That is aligned with the strategic plan. So approaches taken to improve undergraduate STEM education should have a direct connection to the strategic plan of the units and the departments. So again, I've said this like 3 times because it's so important. It's very, very important. The IP track proposal may focus on multiple areas. And here are just a few of the activities. Again, there are examples. Research indicators of effective and successful undergraduate STEM education at HSIs. We have indicators for certain areas. We don't have indicators for all the HSIs, for the diverse set of HSIs. So it would be great if they could focus on that. Improvements to a single STEM course and associated interventions that enable students to be successful in a single department. Enhanced hands-on experience or targeted mentoring, as well as advising students that, let's say, with high financial need. They might focus on that. Activities could also focus on collaborating with partners among several institutions to implement a similar intervention or the same intervention across the different campuses or the different institutions. Coordinating improvements to student support service or units for more than one, let's say, introductory course within the institution. Maybe you want to coordinate with the College of Engineering and the College of Agriculture, Science in an introductory course that students must take in both colleges. So the ITP activities can involve all the individuals that are involved in the educational efforts of our students at the undergraduate level. And that could be students, part-time faculty, non-tenure track faculty, tenure track faculty, administrators as well that I forgot to put in there. And so you could create a program or a project that only focuses, let's say, on part-time faculty, because that makes sense for your institution. So at this moment, I'm just gonna pause to see if my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Lewis, has joined us, but I don't hear, so I'm gonna go on. I'll try to pause in every so often to see if she's here with us. So, and the third track is the institutional transformation track. And that is one of the tracks that we're really excited about, because we really, like I said, we really want to inject institutional and community transformation into our program. And for this track provides funding for 5 years. And that is for all HSIs for institutional-wide systemic change projects grounded in STEM education research and broadening participation. The ITP should be designed to make institutional infrastructure and changes to support long-term institutional changes that encourage and support faculty to implement evidence-based practice that enhance the outcomes of students in STEM at the proposing HSI. The ITP track should impact all STEM disciplines at that HSI. So this is the thing, for the institutional transformation project, you have to impact all the disciplines in STEM at your institution. And the ITP proposed activities should be really linked to systemic changes that are expected to be institutionalized and sustained beyond the project. And you should articulate in your proposal how are your activities and the changes that you have that will come about going to be sustained. And there's only one submission per institution of the proposal, and once you get an award, you're no longer eligible for that award. The institutional transformation project must be grounded in one or more theories of organizational change, and the ITP project should create institutional-wide strategies to transform education policies and practices, as well as campus climate that shapes and influence the students' academic experience, access to resources, and success. As we know from literature and from research, if a student is experiencing an unwelcoming environment in, let's say, physics or in a certain discipline area, that would affect the student's decisions to go on into a STEM degree and to successfully graduate. So we want to make sure with the institutional transformation project that different departments, different colleges are working together so that the climate is welcoming, not just in one department or in a few, but in all of them, in all the STEM departments, so that our students are going to be able to be successful. Because many times students in STEM have to take courses from different departments. So we want to create that environment and that culture, and that's very important. Also, the ITP should be aligned with the institutional mission and a strategic plan, and consider the surrounding community. Sometimes we have colleges that are rural, and we have other colleges that are more in the inner city, and they should consider the communities that are surrounding them, as well as the institution mission and a strategic plan in the proposed work. They should demonstrate evidence of institutional commitment to support the work, and that is key. So in your proposal, you have to articulate the institutional commitment, and you also have to show that to the to the collaboration letters from the institution. We don't want them to be the standard ones, but we want them to show the significant commitment to institutionalize any strategy or anything that will come out of this project that is what you're recommending or what you're suggesting to do in your proposed work. And that's why it's very important also to have the right team in place to be able to make those changes. And what we mean by the right team is we want you to have a multidisciplinary team to ensure that the expertise are on deck to be able to make that change happen. But we also want you to have an upper level administration with the institution-wide responsibility and authority over STEM education at the institution. And that's because that way you have someone already on your team. There is buy-in that your institution, your policy that you're instituting will be instituted effectively. And you have someone that could shepherd that process. So we want within the PI team to have an administrator that have such an authority. We also want the PI team to have members that are ready to not just create the framework, but implement the work as well. And sometimes if you're in a smaller institution, you might not have all the expertise, and you will have to then bring experts from other institutions. And you could do this through a subcontract, because the institutional transformation projects are for a single institution, but you could bring someone to the PI team or to as a senior personnel with a subcontract. Now, for the ITP, just like with the IEP, there is a research component, and that has to be part of the plan. You have to have a research plan that is well articulated and that is aligned with the institution mission. So, and the research should result in strategic understanding about how the multiple components of the HSI program and goals work in synchronous way to advance the STEM education of undergraduates. So that is something that is key. The institutional transformation projects may involve adaptation of evidence-based strategies that have been designed elsewhere and have been shown to be effective, or those strategies maybe you read on the literature of their effectiveness and you see how they fit into the needs of your institution. We also encourage design of new and novel strategies to be implemented. So we encourage both adaptation and new strategies. The ITPs may conduct research that advances understanding of institutional culture and identity of the students' learning outcomes within undergraduate STEM education. The ITP may investigate the interplay of the institutional identity and student social identity affecting the student's success. And that's very important because, again, this is where the intersectional lens comes into play as well. So, and the institutional transformation must include project evaluation, dissemination plan, and education research component. So all those are, the last list there, those are requirements. And here's a list of what our potential ITP activities may be that lead to systemic change. The activities could include creating a new instructional resource available for all STEM departments, or it could include creating a new infrastructure that supports faculty use of evidence-based teaching strategies in all the classrooms or labs, or creating new expectations for faculty teaching and service that allows faculty to really be invested in the students' education and be able to shepherd that process. To create new policies for faculty, hiring, promotion, and salary and tenure. So those are some examples of systemic changes. There could be other ones, and we want you to propose the ones that make sense for your institution. It may, and another thing that for the ITPs, you know, we want you to be able to articulate how you're going to continue to improve your goals once the interventions have been implemented. Now, there's a few required components of the proposal, and we go in the solicitation, we go into detail about the different components that are required, what are the subcomponents that are needed. We give examples, so I encourage you to actually go into the solicitation, but here just a brief list of some of the components that are required for the project description. We expect description of the HSI context and undergraduate STEM education offerings so that we could understand the context where you're building your project from. We expect a description of the specific project components to be implemented. We also expect a project management plan, who's going to be doing what, and the rationale, and how are those multiple parts going to be working together. A commitment and sustainability plan. We expect that, as well as a communication and dissemination plan. And we also expect a project evaluation plan. That's within the project description. And something that I highlighted that is very important is the STEM education and research plan for the IEP and the ITP track. Those are requirements for those two tracks, not for the PPP, but for the two other tracks they are. And then for supplementary documents, we expect letters of collaborations that show the commitment, whether it's of the partner or the commitment of the administration. We want to see the commitment. And we also, if you have if applicable, if you're requesting faculty funding for research, we expect a faculty research plan. Also, if you're requesting stipends or wages for students, we expect a student mentoring plan. And if you are requesting funding or you have postdoctoral students that are involved, we expect a postdoctoral mentoring plan. And for all proposals, a data management plan. For all proposals applying to one of the three tracks, an HSI certification form signed by the appropriate individual at your institution, and biographical sketches for independent evaluators, for the co-PIs, and for the senior personnel. And for the PPP track, we expect the certification of that the institution is a predominantly undergraduate institution, and we have that in our website. And I think also there's a link in our solicitation to that certification that has to be signed by an appropriate individual in the institution. And then institutional data narrative. That's very important. We expect that from all proposals. And here's just a slide about the nonprofit organizations that now they can submit proposals and conference workshops. Before, only HSIs could submit proposals for conference and workshops. We understand that organizations that are committed to HSIs and they work with HSIs to advance student undergraduate education, and that they play a fundamental role. For that reason, in our new solicitation, we have allow now nonprofit organizations that have such a commitment and that move forward the goals of the HSI program to submit conference proposals. And for instructions on how to submit conference proposals, there are instructions on the PAPPG, Chapter 7, 11E7. And you find this in our solicitation as well. And thank you for your attention. Here are some resources. At the beginning, I forgot to mention, but this is a team effort. I work very closely with my colleague, Jennifer Lewis, who I've been very lucky to have. And we also work very closely with other members of the team. We have a program monitoring team. We also have a set of program officers, as well as program specialists that work with us. And don't hesitate to reach to us at any point if you have any questions. And now I'm gonna stop sharing so that we could, I could answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we have a lot of questions in the chat. So what I'm going to do, Dr. Camacho, is just start reading some of those questions to you. And
Excellent.
I know that some of them were asked early on, so there might be, you may have answered them as you went further, but we'll just go in the order that they are in. What is the major difference or differences between the, and I think this is an excellent example of that, of the PPP and the IEP?
The major differences is, well, for one is the PPP, you can only apply if you're a predominantly undergraduate institution or you're an institution that is new to NSF. So that's a big difference. Another big difference is that the PPP is more for pilot planning projects. You know, either it could be a planning project. So in other words, it's a proposal to plan for a submission for one of our other tracks. So we're giving you funding to plan to submit a proposal for one of our other tracks. And you just have to articulate what are the activities that you're gonna do that are gonna allow you to, at the end of the funding period, you're gonna have this proposal ready to be submitted. And you're gonna have the components in places. So maybe you wanna start some kind of partnership with local industries, but you haven't had the opportunity to really make those connections and catalyze those partnerships. Well, you would articulate that in your proposal. How are you going to catalyze those partnerships? How are you going to bring people to the table? In fact, you could ask for funding for to host meetings with partners, right? That's the planning one. So it's really about planning. The pilot one, you do more like small scale, well-defined projects. They're smaller, and that's to get preliminary data so that it's a pilot, so you know that it works. And then you could go on and scale it up with an IEP, which is the implementation and evaluation project. So the implementation and evaluation project is really like our projects that were for building capacity in a previous solicitation, right? So in there, we really, now for the PPP, you don't have to have a research plan, right? For the IEP, you have to have a research plan. So it's not anymore a pilot project, it's a full-blown project. And so, so that's the major difference. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. I think that was excellent. If we represent a community college, do we need to collaborate with another institution?
Great question. For the incentive, yes, right? Because it's to collaborate, right? So if you're a single institution, you would get that's a great question, actually. Now that because if you're a single institution, you would get the 300K, the 300,000, no matter who you are. Then if you do a collaborative proposal, you get a 300,000. So you get 100,000 more. And now if in that collaboration, there's a community college, then you get the extra 100,000. So yes, you would have to collaborate with another institution. It could be another community college, or it could be another institution that is not a community college.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question. Can a private Hispanic school of medicine with a graduate PhD program and other BS programs in Puerto Rico partner with a regional undergraduate college to apply for these awards?
So now, if the private institution is a for-profit, all of our awardees have to be nonprofit.
Okay.
So so it would have to be a nonprofit institution, right? And then they could partner. And if the other organization or institution is not an HSI, they would have to come in as a subcontract, not as a collaborative proposal. I should mention just to the previous question, the reason for that extra incentives is because we really want to catalyze collaborations.
Okay. And for the other comment related to the private Hispanic school is they're also said they've never received HSI funds before, but they are a PhD granting institution.
Can you repeat the question,
Martha? So what first they were asking, can a private Hispanic school of medicine with a graduate PhD program and other BS programs in Puerto Rico partner with a regional undergraduate college to apply for these awards? And then in the next question box, they went on to say, we, being the private Hispanic school of medicine, have not received NSF funds.
So they would have to articulate in their assuming they're a nonprofit and they're an HSI, they would have to articulate in the proposal that they will be serving they would be actually addressing the needs in the STEM disciplines that the NSF support. For example, we don't do biological science or medical science, but we support other sciences. And so you just have to, yes, you would get funding. You could get funding even if you're a medical school, but you have to articulate that what you're doing is targeting the groups and the disciplines that NSF supports.
Okay, excellent. For track 2/3, it mentions emphasis on STEM education research. Can you please elaborate if this is required, that it is expecting STEM pedagogy research to be conducted as part of the project? So is it requiring STEM pedagogy? And then the second part is, to have a proposal strongly considered, would we need a co-PI? Would we need a co-PI? I'm sorry, sometimes it's a little confusing. Coming from an ENGR education, from engineering education research, is that, yeah.
So the IEP, the implementation and evaluation projects, and the institutional transformation projects, those two tracks, you could do STEM education research, or you could do, I call it broadening participation research. However, the broadening participation research has to be linked to enhancing the quality of undergraduate education. You have to link it, say how the broadening participation research that you're doing, the understanding, for example, for the ITP, we also encourage research to provide better understanding of how we build capacity at HSIs, right? So you could do research on broadening participation that will lead to better understanding of building capacity at HSIs. But then you will link to how does that lead to enhancing the undergraduate STEM education. But no, you could do it on broadening participation as well.
Okay, excellent. Next one is pretty straightforward. When will the award recipients be announced? Will September 2021 be too early for the proposed activities if funded?
2021. Well, so we're looking at, the deadline is January 13, right? And normally it takes about that's when you submit the proposal. That's a proposal deadline. From that time to when we actually, by the time that we're done, where we already recommended the awards and the Division of Graduate Agreement already approved those awards, the minimum time is about 6 to 7 months. So it could be 7 to 9 months. Mm-hmm. So I would plan a starting date about 9 months after the deadline. A minimum of 6 months, but more like 9 months.
Excellent. So be prepared to be flexible. Okay, next question. Is there a template for mentoring plans? And also, can we include a counselor to serve as a mentor and not PI?
Let me clarify. When you mean counselor, is it a counselor at the HSI or counselor at the high school? You could.
I'm not sure on what that.
It could be so we do subcontracts, right? If the counselor is not part of the university faculty, right? Then it would be a subcontract. So if that counselor is getting effort or funding or wages, it would be as a subcontract. But if he's an employee of the university, then it would be under the personnel line for the budget.
Yeah, and the other part of that question was, is there a template available for mentoring plans?
No, there's no template, right, for the mentoring plan. But again, in the past, and for any of the grants, NSF requires a mentoring plan for postdocs, right? So for postdocs, I'm pretty sure if you ask your colleagues, there's a lot of there's some that you could use, but those are for postdocs. Now we want to see it for undergraduates and graduate students. It's a similar thing. It's just kind of, what activities are you going to do? For example, if you hire someone to be collecting data for your or putting it together into the computer, well, that individual, we hope that they're getting mentored so that they could also impact and become a scientist. So how are you going to mentor that individual, even though it's just it's someone that is just working on the project?
Okay, thank you. Next question. We are a multi-campus system. Each campus is semi-autonomous, are geographically separated, and has its own academic chief. If this, in this case, can 2 campuses apply to be a collaborative project?
Yes.
Okay, and then she goes on to say, can we include the institutional data in the narrative, or does it need to be included as a supplemental document?
Well, it would be in the data narrative, which is a supplemental document. The data narrative is a supplemental document. And yes, you could apply. And in fact, we do have institutions like that they collaborate.
Excellent. Okay, next question. Will female students and African American students be considered potential targets for recruitment and retention under this program?
Every single student at the HSI is a target, a potential target. Remember, the HSI program is an institution program. It's an institution focus. We're focusing on the institution because the students come and go. The institution stays there forever. The institution builds the structure, right? And so every single student, and yes, every single student. And in fact, if you have students that are African American and you're including them, I think it really makes sense then to talk a little bit about the intersectional identities of your students.
Excellent. Okay, next question. If we do research in another institution, do we need to include a letter of collaboration?
That would help you tremendously. Yes, yes, you should.
Okay.
I mean, it's not required, but you should.
All right, next. You mentioned institutional data for all STEM fields. What if your proposal is focused on engineering initiatives? Do we need to provide institutional data from College of Sciences STEM fields, even though they aren't part of the proposal that is centered around engineering department?
When I mentioned the institutional, the data that was, the baseline data that was required for the IEP and the ITP tracks, there's baseline required. And I said there's 3 different ways that you could fulfill that requirement. One of them was the institutional data for all STEM fields. Another one was the demographics and enrollment of the departments that are being affected by the project. So no, you don't have to include it for all of them. You could, there were 3 different, and then the other one is to look at data on graduation and retention rates on the departments that you're involving in your project. So you have one of those 3 options. You could do all of them. I think the more the better if you have that information, but you don't have to.
Excellent, thank you. Next question. Our School of Engineering offers 4 engineering programs, but the School of Engineering is considered a department while the 4 programs are not recognized as individual academic units. Our proposal is to support all engineering students. Should we list engineering data as a whole, or should we provide individual program student data in the proposal?
You should do what makes more sense. The data narrative is really for you to make a case of both, we need this funding, we need this project, and we are ready to undertake this project, right? So we're ready because we recognize the gaps. We recognize the opportunities, and we know how we're gonna achieve those, get to that level of representation in STEM. So I think that you do what you feel is best, right? And also what you're able to do. We understand that there's limitation on data that you could be able to get from the institution. So whatever you think is best to make the most cohesive and strong argument, do that.
Okay. Here's the next, excuse me, the next question. With respect to track 2 and 3, are community colleges eligible? Do associate degrees in technology count? And what types of certificates qualify?
For track 2 and 3,
Yes.
yes, community college are eligible. Community college are eligible for all tracks. This solicitation was done very intentionally, and we kept in mind and in the forefront community college, because we really wanted to address the goal of building capacity at less resource institutions. We also understand the role the community college play in the educational arena, and we wanted to make sure that we were responsive to that. So yes.
Excellent.
And in terms of what qualifies is depending on, like, I guess it would need to be what are all the different degrees that are being offered, right? Or what is the degrees that are being offered?
Yeah, so they asked specifically if technology counts, and then if there were other types of certificates that qualified.
No, that would definitely qualify, yes.
Okay, okay. The next question is about the HSI Hub. Through the HSI Hub, can we get help with grant writing?
Martha will answer that question.
I will answer that. And no, the Hub does not provide, the Hub will provide guidance, answer your questions, but we simply don't have enough staff to provide assistance with writing grants. So you can reach out to us. We're happy to, we're going to have 2 help sessions for these in the next, the first Friday of November and the first Friday of December. You can register for a webinar that's simply question answers related to this specific call. We're there to answer your questions and to guide you as you pull your proposal together. But in terms of specific assistance with writing the proposals, we cannot do that. And also because we're helping multiple individuals, it's very difficult to share ideas and talk about writing proposals. Okay, the next question, just to recap, which track can one community college apply for alone? I think it was number 3.
They could apply for all of them alone. A community college could apply for all of them alone. Yep. That's the thing. All the tracks allowed all the HSI institutions to apply alone. It's just that we're incentivizing partnerships because we understand the importance of building that community that helps each other. For example, even for the grant writing, if you partner with PIs that have already written grants before, then that enhances your skills, right? And that's makes sense to partner. So we're just incentivizing partnerships where it makes sense to partner, but you know, we also understand that sometimes it makes sense not to partner. So yeah, you could apply to all the tracks on a single institution.
Excellent. Next question. If the PI is a temporary faculty, how does it impact the chances of funding of that project? Regardless of if they have a good collaboration and research plan.
Remember, the grants are given to the institution. These are institution grants. So we give them, so while you're the PI, you are the one that is leading the effort, the funding goes to the institution.
Okay. Next, also, can you please provide an example of the role of faculty on a team that works on a project like this?
In which track and which project, if you could define project a little bit.
Let's see, is it the same? No, I don't, let's see. Oh, okay, so here's the same person's first said, just to recap, which track can one community college apply for alone? And you said it could be all of them. And then the same person then said, can you please provide an example of the role of faculty on a team that works on a project like this? And can you please provide an example of the perfect team?
I see. An example that works on a project. Can you repeat that last part? I understand.
And what would, in your mind, what would be the perfect team?
The perfect team?
Yes.
In my mind, again, this is,
yes.
this is it depends on the specific of the project. So this is just taking a general approach, right? Just taking an approach from looking at the big overall goals of the HSI program. I would have someone with STEM education research expertise, someone with social and behavioral science research expertise. And the reason why is because even if I'm doing something about curriculum development, I'm also going to try to understand the cultural relevance part of teaching. So in understanding culture and understanding how that impacts our students, I need to look at who our students are. What are their identities? And for that, it would be good to have a social and behavioral science in the team. I would definitely bring an evaluator and assessment expert into the team, no matter what project I'm doing. And then depending on the disciplines that I'm addressing, right? If I'm addressing something in biological sciences, well, bring a biologist would make sense. Now, if I'm addressing all disciplines, I could only have four co-PIs and one PI. That's only 5. So what I would do a senior personnel leadership team. And then I would bring people as senior personnel. So that way I could describe their expertise on the proposal, as well as be able to have a bio sketch for them, so that we could show the reviewers that we are a big team and we're ready to undertake all those different areas that we say we were gonna try to do work on.
Excellent.
And one more thing, and if I'm doing something with service courses, they usually are taught by instructors and part-time faculty, I would include them in my team as well.
Good. Okay, next question. Our institution has been mostly a teaching institution. We are trying to become a research institution. Is the PPP track going to allow funding for capacity building for the SPOs as well? I'm not sure what an SPO is.
Is it a sponsor program office?
Yeah, that's probably it, yes.
I see. Well, the thing is that depends if you're applying for the PPP, right? As a way to become a research institution, and that's what you articulate in the proposal, chances are is that probably reviewers are not gonna view it as favorably as if actually the reason why you're applying for the PPP is because you're trying to later on apply for an institutional transformation grant. And therefore, you would like to have a better sponsor office program officer, as well as a better team to be able to not just apply successfully, but then be able to be competitive to maintain the activities, right? Then if you articulate it that way and articulate how that's going to impact undergraduate education, then that's a different perspective.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Yes, I think so. I hope so. I'm sure if not, there'll be another question in there.
Yeah, if I don't answer a question, please put another question to clarify it.
And that's been going on, so I've seen other questions coming in. Is there a limitation in terms of the total number of pages included for all supplemental documentation? For example, faculty research plans when there are many faculty involved.
No, there is no limit. There's the limits that are there, you'll see them in the solicitation, right?
Okay.
So certain documents have page limit, certain don't, right? And if you ask me what the maximum within reason, is also like for the project description. Sometimes I've been asked, what is the least amount of pages? And I go, well, how much do you need to articulate your idea and give convincing arguments? If you only need 10 pages, that's all. If you need only 7 pages, that's all. But but we do have a limit of 15 pages, so you have to by that time accomplish that goal. So no, there's no limit. So whatever you think is appropriate for the ones that don't have a limit.
Excellent. Will the recent executive order banning sensitivity training, etc., affect award funding on this solicitation?
We currently have not been giving. Our leadership is working very hard, and we will have guidance on that in the near future.
Okay, good. If we want to budget for a mini symposium where students can present their findings, can we budget for snacks and keynote speakers?
If it's a working lunch, so it has to be a working lunch or a working training session. So if it's a working training session, yes.
And they can also budget for keynote speakers.
Oh,
correct?
yes, absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. They would be, just like you do, let's say when you bring other people, other expertise, like in a subcontracts, you could also do it that way, or you could budget it within your institution and they receive the stipend through your institution.
Okay, excellent. The solicitation says that an eligible institution cannot have more than 2 active IEP awards. But how many proposals is each institution allowed to submit if it has no active IEP awards?
They could submit as many as they want.
Yeah.
There's no limit. The limit is really because, again, we want to spread the wealth. And for the same reason, if you have, right now, IEP is a new track. So there's no active IEP awards. However, if there's active building capacity awards under the previous solicitations, the last 2, if they're active, there's 2 of them that are active and there's no final report submitted, then the institution cannot apply.
Yeah, excellent. Is it necessary to include a separate section labeled broader impacts in the PPP proposal? Or is it not necessary if the research itself covers it?
Is what you think is best, right? It's not required anymore. It used to be required. The proposal needs to have that separate section. So is what you think is best. Sometimes my advice, if that's going to be a key component of your proposal, you might want to highlight it in a separate section, right? Just consider yourself as a reviewer, right? And a busy reviewer that has to review through many of these proposals with many pages. And if there's something important, you either want to make it in bold, you want to highlight it so they don't miss it. So it just depends. So no, you don't have to.
Thank you. If someone is a senior personnel in another proposal, can that person be a PI?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. If a non-community college institution has a building capacity grant under a previous solicitation and wants to, 1, expand intervention to new courses / faculty, and 2, partner with a community college to adopt / expand the approaches of the building capacity grant, which track would that fall under? Do you want me to repeat that?
No, I got it. It would fall under track 2 or track 3. It just depends. Like if you're gonna do something that is institutional wide, then it would be track 3, right? The institutional transformation. If it's gonna be more department focused or college focused, then it would be track 2, but it could be under track 2 or track 3.
Okay. Okay, the next question is about track 1. Can we propose creating a new degree in STEM with new proposed courses or creating a research-based course as an intervention?
Yes. Yes to both answers.
Okay, excellent. Do you know what time the grant writing workshops will be in the first weeks of November, December? The NSF HSI STEM Hub, all workshops for this fall series will be at the exact same time as this workshop right now. So 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And they'll typically go for an hour. This one is a little longer, and sometimes they go over an hour. Okay. The next question, I'm going to ask them to clarify because it says any of the tracks. It's not a question. Okay, but here's the same person. I am trying to clarify how much time a faculty member might commit weekly to being on this team.
So are you asking about support for faculty effort or for PI effort?
Possibly, or just possibly trying to gauge if they bring collaborators on, what their effort would be. Yeah.
So the maximum for in NSF, that include all awards. So you have, if you already have an active award and then you get awarded this award, the maximum amount of effort that you could be getting from NSF or request is 2 months. And that's including for both of them, 2 months per year. Now, if you're in an intensive teaching institution like community college, there is exceptions. You could request for more than that. And then the program officer in the program office would approve that request. And when you're submitting the proposal, it's not like you make a separate request. No, you just justify it. So let's say you're gonna put it, and I'm just gonna make up 2.5 time of effort per year for a certain faculty. Then in your or 3 months, in your justification, you would justify why you need the 3 months. Because you have 5 courses that you're teaching per semester and there is no release time, and so then this would help you, blah, blah. So you would have to justify in your justification, and we take that into consideration, and we look at it very closely for community college and very intensive teaching institutions.
Thank you. And the last question is asking if this recording is going to appear later on the HSI Hub webpage, and my response to that is, it will if we're able to get the appropriate captioning for all visually and hearing impaired. And assuming that we are able to get that, it will appear in 3 weeks. But we will also, for the first week of November and the first week of December, be here to support you as you're working through your proposals. Let me see, I think we may have gotten another one in. Oh, we've got some more in. I thought that was in. Are you stating that faculty would be released from teaching for that time frame? So
if that's what you're asking for, if you're asking for a course buyout, that would be the case. If what you're asking for supplemental salary, that would be the case. And whether it's one or the other, usually is really working with your university for that. You know, because usually, let's say many times you might end up requesting an extra month because you actually later on you work that they're gonna hire someone else and release you, but that month is gonna go for that.
Excellent. And here's this question, we always hear this question, is there a guideline, parentheses maximum, such as percentage, as to how much NSF may allow for payment for an evaluator?
There is not necessarily a maximum. And we ask that you really look at the project. There's project evaluations that are very more complicated, more comprehensive. We have a lot of components, so we understand that those ones will require more funding than the ones that are smaller in magnitude. So the thing is, ask for what you think is appropriate, and if the NSF program office, after evaluating the budget, realizes that it's not, they will ask you to, if they're thinking about recommending you for an award, they will ask you to cut down on that amount. But I would say, look at the evaluators that have evaluated similar projects, if that's the ones that you're planning to go with, and get different kind of pricing, kind of different references, and go with the one that is the best for your program.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And that's it. We have no more questions. The last comment here is thank you very much for your time and your expertise. And I would echo that. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it was very long of project. I just wanted to make sure that I got all the details. And we are planning, my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Lewis, and I will be having webinars at the beginning of November, a recorded webinar. So it will be available with more detail. It will be extensive, but we want to make sure that we include all the details.
Hold on, I think we have new messages coming in. Let's see if there's.
So sure, this is, any questions that you have, and please submit a proposal and encourage your colleagues to submit a proposal.
Okay, we've had several more questions that have come in. One is, for teaching intensive institutions, please clarify that you do not need to request additional effort beyond 2 calendar months from the PO.
You could request it. So what I'm saying is that you could request additional funding and it would be considered. And in many cases, we have approved it. So you could consider it, right? You could ask for that funding. Now they might say no, and they will give you they'll tell you no because this is this, or they might actually say yes, fine.
Someone else included a comment here, which is very good advice, and it says more of a comment than a question. Please engage an evaluator early and often. Very appropriate.
Yes.
Another question, for a PPP, what would be a ballpark expectation? Can you give recommendations if asked?
Depending on what ballpark for what particular aspect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Here's another question. I am at a teaching intensive college, a community college. If I seek a course buyout, do I need permission or consultation with the program officer in order to clarify language and institutional letters of commitment?
So it's very, very important. I didn't, because this was just to introduce the solicitation, but it's key that you engage with the program officer and that you get their assistance on, because depending on the project, depending on what you're asking, so it's very important. So my recommendation would be, once you have a very solid idea what you're gonna do, once you have the team on the table, then you could request a meeting, have a specific question, say we have questions on this and that, because we cannot give you advice just in general. If you just send us your 2-page and say, can you give me feedback on this? We're not allowed to do that. But if you ask us a specific questions, we will, and you set up a meeting, we will go ahead and request a meeting. We will set up a meeting and we will answer your questions and other questions that you might have. So I would advise you to, once you have your team, you have your idea, because that way your whole team gets to hear it and gets to ask other questions, then you could engage and ask those specific questions.
Excellent, but don't wait till the last minute to do that. Make sure to do that well in advance.
Right.
The question related to, for PPP, what would be a ballpark expectation? That was related to the cost of an evaluator.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, depends on how much you're gonna evaluate, how much of the activities are gonna be evaluated, how many activities are gonna be evaluated, and how they're gonna be evaluated, right? So it is not there is not, I cannot tell you this much is a good amount, because it depends on the project, right? Let's say you're doing a PPP where it's all about planning. You're going to be doing very little evaluation. Then then a smaller amount would be more reasonable. But if you're going to do a lot of activities that you're going to be evaluating and looking into, so that you could be informed as you move forward and assess, then you need a little bit more. So it's really project dependent.
Yeah. Here's someone else asking if there's a person/email to send future questions to.
Oh, pardon me, can you repeat that?
Is there a person/email to send future questions to?
Yes, the 2 co-leads, which I put the slide and I will share it. If you, I'll share it again. Let me just open it and share it, and I will put it right now. Let me just and you could send us emails there. You could also on our website, we have our email. They could go for anyone.
I don't see that information on that. Oh, here it is. Okay, there.
Sorry, I was trying to click on it. Yeah, so there's our emails, right? And there's names of other program officers as well that work with our team. And you could reach to any of us. Definitely my colleague Jennifer Lewis and myself will be glad to answer any of your questions. We also are planning, we need to do a little bit more legwork, but we're hoping to have office hours, periodic office hours, where we would be assigned a certain hour per week and just be there in Zoom, and people could log in and ask questions as well, to try to be more effective in answering questions and reduce also a lot of the email flow, and be able, because sometimes we get the same questions from multiple PIs. So we're hoping to do that as well. But you could reach out through email and we will answer the questions.
Excellent.
And I'm going to stop sharing.
Oh, we still have a few more. Let's see. Here's this looks like a comment. The evaluation must align very closely with the study design goals and objectives. Hence, please talk to them to know what they would plan and how much it will cost them to do it well. Absolutely. And here's another question. Would starting a STEM-based summer bridge program be better suited for a track 2 or a track 3?
Depends on the goals, right? For example, it wouldn't be a track 3 because a track 3 has to impact all STEM majors and has to bring systemic change. So my question for taking track 3, if you're going to do a summer bridge program, right? Where is the systemic change? What are the policies? What are the structures? What is the culture that is being changed? And how is that going to be sustained after the grant? So for track 3, the institutional transformation track, you really want to bring strategies that once you want to implement strategies that once the proposal and the funding ends, you are able to maintain those ones for a long term. You want to be able to change policy. You want to be able to change structures, things that will last forever. So if you do a summer bridge program, where is the systemic change?
Mm-hmm.
There's a systemic change in that. But for the other two, depends on the magnet, how big it is and what it is.
All right. Will your PowerPoint slides be available for the HSI STEM Hub website?
One of the things for us to be able to put in a website, it has to be approved.
Okay.
For us, I could go ahead and share them with Martha, and she could then send them to you individually to all the participants that register for this webinar. But for them to be up on the website, they need to be approved. And we haven't approved them just because we're trying to get the word out right now that it's Hispanic Heritage Month. And that takes also some time. But I could share them with Martha, and she will share them with registered participants.
Excellent. We're happy to do that. And then you'll also be having your webinars that will be coming up in November, and there will be materials probably available there as well. Mm-hmm. But if you share them with us, we're happy to send them out to all of our participants today. Let me see. It looks like maybe, yep. Boy, they just keep on coming in. Would creating a data science certification program created by updating STEM course? No. Would creating a, hold on, it's jumping around. Would creating a data science certification program created by updating STEM courses be? I think it's saying, what would this be?
That would be a great thing to do. And that could be track 1, track 2. Now, if that data science, you could articulate that it's going to impact all students. For example, you say, physics majors, and other social science majors and other majors that with fields that we support somehow are going to be impacted directly or indirectly. That's a track 3 proposal.
So that's what they were intending. Would it be appropriate for track 3?
Yes, but you have to articulate that it's going to impact all majors. And like I said, directly or indirectly.
Okay, I think we can say that we are done. And thank you so very much for your time today. It was very informative. There's a lot to think about with this new solicitation.
No, thank you. And like I said, it has a lot of great opportunities. There's some that I didn't articulate because I didn't have the time to, but I really encourage you to go through the solicitation. One of the key things that I realized that really is helpful is that you go through the solicitation like you're taking notes. You highlight things, you take notes, you make sure that things that are, because there's recommendations embedded there. Some of the suggestions really frame the way that things should be explained or articulated. So please use that as a guideline. And then even, like I said, it's very extensive because even for the components of the project description, the supplemental documents, we are trying to describe everything that is needed so that you're better positioned to submit a successful proposal. So, and like I said, and the questions are there and you could see them now. If you need clarification, we'll be happy to answer them, but really take the time to read the proposal. It's lengthy, so read it not just once, read it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then start to frame your idea with that in mind.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Camacho. That was a long stretch today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. I really want all of you to be submitting grants. I'm really excited about this opportunity. I really hope to see more community colleges get funded, less resource. But not only that, I also want the big institutions to partner with smaller institutions and get funded so that we start to build that community that will help us transform the experience for our students and for our faculty. So please, and if you have any questions, reach out. If I don't have the answer, I'll find the answer for you.
And we also encourage you all to join us the first Friday in November, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we'll be here, myself and Dr. Valles, to answer any questions that you have regarding the proposals you're working on. Thank you, Dr. Camacho.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.